Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and the Disney Corporation have gone to war. But is it about wokeness or money and power? You decide! Hello there, you 5.5 million awakening wonders on a journey together with us as we grow this channel, as we grow our minds, as we grow the light inside. If you want to come and see me live, you can. Look, I'm in Plymouth, there's a few tickets there. I'm in Glasgow, there's a few tickets. I'm in all sorts of places. Come see me, it's fantastic. Remember to subscribe to this channel. Currently, only half of you do, and turn on that notification bell so I can ding-a-ling-a-ling right in the midst of your consciousness whenever I need to. Now, what is going on in Florida? It seems that laws are being changed. Some people interpret it as prohibition around speaking about sexuality and gender identity. Is that literally what the law is? That seems mad and crazy. Other people say it's a power-motivated discourse because Ron DeSantis is likely to become, is he, the next president of the United States? Is it a DeSantis versus Trump Republican showdown? And what is the role of the Disney Corporation, one of the most beloved corporations in the world, one of the most powerful brands on the planet, a brand so powerful that they sort of run their own kind of town. So what's going on over there in Disney World? And by Disney World, I mean the actual world.
Disney World may be about to lose its unusual status as a special tax district in Florida.
It's a bit weird that Disney is a special tax district anyway, isn't it? Because it's not an actual world, is it? Like with people sort of like, oh, what's going on today? I'm having a pretty shit time, as a matter of fact.
The state's governor, Ron DeSantis, signed a bill into law Friday revoking it. Disney World has had near total control of its land since 1967, when the state designated the area as the Reedy Creek Improvement District.
It's really interesting, isn't it? The way that we regard reality. Most of us still think we live in nations. England, France. What I've begun to think is that the veil of nation obscures from us the economic realities of corporate globalism or global corporatism. It doesn't really matter which way you put those words around, does it? That essentially how the world operates is in accordance with a set of systems and principles that are, broadly speaking, beyond the democratic bounds. Once in a while, there'll be some conflict or conflagration that allows you to address the true nature of power. The great writer David Foster Wallace, in his brilliant book, Infinite Jest, talked about like a world where brands actually sponsored like whole countries. You would have Apple Land and Facebook World and Disney World. Well, that's already here. Oh my God, he just plagiarized that from reality. Who really has power? Is it ordinary people within nations, electing officials that implement their will? Or is there a sort of a set of agenda that sort of remain broadly inaccessible? And once in a while, there'll be a big conflict, probably about money and power, that will likely play out in the realm of culture because we overreact to culture. That's the truth, isn't it? If someone tells you a bunch of numbers, oh, these people are only paying this much tax, oh, I'm bored, I can't be bothered with that. These people are not going to allow you to be who you are sexually. What? You motherfuckers! And suddenly you're interested.
Disney essentially operates as its own county government and even taxes itself.
I tax me not that much. Well done, me. That's a very fair tax bill. I'm not even paying that bit of tax you tax me. You'll pay me my tax, me.
But if the law goes into full effect next year, Orange and Osceola counties will control the district, which covers nearly 40 square miles.
Now, this don't say gay bills. People have been talking about it for a while. Some people are saying that it's not possible to talk to children about identity and sexuality. Now, I've got children. I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. And let me tell you, you have to have pretty complex conversations from day one. Whose domain are those conversations? Is it educational institutes? Is it familial institutes? Who do you want to have control over your children's education? Do you want your children to be socialized and educated within groups of like your own peers, sort of more tribal, traditional groups? Or this is, I suppose, a complex set of questions. My personal principles are founded on tolerance, that we have to tolerate traditionalism and we have to tolerate progressivism. I think that if people want to raise their children in a particular way, they should be able to, as long as they're not hurting or in any way abusing those children. My conversations with my own children include conversations around gender identity. They often ask questions around sexuality, and as an individual, as members of a family, I find that there are challenging conversations that have to be had from pretty early on. Let's see what this law is, let's see what's going on, and let's see what the likely motivations are and what this dispute actually centralizes around. Disney employs 38 lobbyists in Florida's capital. Each election cycle, the company gives generous campaign contributions to Florida candidates on both sides of the political aisle. That shows you right there that there is no genuine ideological agenda. We really strongly believe in LGBTQ plus rights, whereas we think that it should all be stamped out. Well, you both have some money, just let us make as much money as we want. Fine, cool. Its theme park mega resort near Orlando attracts around 50 million visitors a year, powering a central Florida tourism economy that annually generates more than $5 billion in local and state tax revenue. The upshot, Disney usually gets whatever it wants in Florida. Fair enough, because the true ideology is an economic one. The ideology around cultural issues, while important because it affects you individually, your family, your children, your life, your rights, it's not so important as the old $5 billion in tax revenue and the profits generated by the Disney Corporation for themselves and their shareholders, I would argue. That era ended on Thursday when the Florida House voted to revoke Disney World's designation as a special tax district, a privilege that Disney has held for 55 years, effectively allowing the company to self-govern its 25,000-acre theme park complex. Interesting to know that while most folk, you, me, everyone else, look at Disney and see like the mouse ears and the castle and the princesses, and maybe once in a while, oh, is this princesses, because I've got daughters, is this giving us enough of a varied and nuanced view on princesses and children and gender? We might think all those things, but Disney is thinking about its unique tax status. That's what they're thinking about, their ability to make profits, not because they're all but because they're a business, and that's the real ideology. That is the true fundamentalist ideology, so fundamental that you literally can't see it because it's just there and it's accepted. We have to learn to view reality properly. We have to see where power is interested in going, or as loads of you say, and I know you'll hit me up in the comments below, follow the money. Where's the money going? I know these issues are important. I'm not saying they're not important. If you want to raise your kids traditionally, as far as I'm concerned, that's none of my business. If you want to raise your kids progressively, as far as I'm concerned, it's none of my business. It's the same as the way I'm raising my kids. That's none of your business, right? So I'm cool with all of that. It's none of your business. But what is business is business. The swift effort to dissolve Reedy Creek by Florida Republicans has been widely seen as a brazen retaliation after Disney, Florida's largest private employer, paused political donations in the state and condemned a new education law that opponents called Don't Say Gay. That's the introduction of a financial component. So while it may be about the colloquially understood as Don't Say Gay bill, also there is already a financial component. They paused donations. Do you think, really deep down, that at big businesses and in the true heart of political life, the corridors of power, they're going, what should we do about whether or not people are gay? Or do you think they're interested in money and power and they'll use whatever tokens and distractions and badges to distract you from that become available? What do you think? Tell me in the comments below, because I'm not sure. Maybe what politicians and great big corporations sit about in their meetings with calculators and computers, are we doing enough about LGBTQ and what are we going to do about racial diversity? Or do you think it's about money? Is there a stock exchange where what they're calculating and trading on is people's rights? Or is it money? Among many things, the law prohibits discussion about sexual orientation and gender identity through the third grade in Florida classrooms and limits it for older students. More than 150 companies, including Marriott and American Airlines, had already signed a human rights campaign letter opposing the legislation. If Disney wants to pick a fight, they chose the wrong guy, Mr. DeSantis, a potential Republican presidential candidate in 2024, wrote in a fundraising email to supporters on Wednesday. I will not allow a woke corporation based in California to run our state. Obviously, what DeSantis has learned from the Trump campaign is there's a significant number of people that do not like progressivism and woke politics. The same way as the corporations have recognised, there's a lot of people who do like progressive politics and woke politics, and that many of those people operate in traditional or conventional or blue chip legacy media spheres, and if you are willing to put on the badges and the apparel, you'll get a certain amount of cultural collateral. I don't think there's a great deal of true idealism at play in either place here. I don't think that Ron DeSantis really cares, and I don't think the Disney Corporation really cares about the stuff they're saying they care about. Based on the information here, it seems that what's really going on is a bunch of people arguing about money and power using the tokens of identity politics or progressive or traditional politics to placate an already baying crowd that have been primed on either side. And I would say your job and our job is to unshackle ourselves from those kind of ideas so that we can participate meaningfully in a conversation, which just simply for me would mean I'm going to raise my children how I want to, within certain, I think, agreed upon moral imperatives around not harming one another. And you raise your children how you want to raise your children. And I accept that there will be differences. Me and my wife have differences of opinion on how we should raise our children. So the best thing, I think, is you leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. Of course, once you send your children to school, your children are now in the hands of the state, and now the state is deciding what information and what ideals your children have access to. So that is the intersectional point between family, private life and state policy and state ideology. I suppose what that suggests to me in terms of solution is you'd probably be better off if your schools were run democratically between the teachers, the pupils to a point, them little lunatics, and the parents, so that you were able to individually discuss what you want at your school. This is why centralized power, whether it's state or corporate, will always lead to suffering in your individual life. Disney has gotten away with special deals from the state of Florida for way too long. Florida has hundreds of similar special tax districts that would be left in place. So there's other ones as well. So it's not just Disney, there's loads of businesses enjoying these favourable tax relationships. Disney's special status has effectively allowed the company to operate as its own municipal government with its own board of supervisors and fire department, and meant Disney could even build its own airport or nuclear power plant if desired. Oh, welcome! Now this is a magical new solution to the problem of power, yeah! It's pretty amazing, isn't it, that they can do that? In a way, if it weren't corporatized, that's exactly the kind of model I'm suggesting. That if you want to run your own very libertarian, progressive community, you should be able to. If you want to run your own very progressive community, you should be able to. You should be able to do what Disney are doing. Disney are able to do it because they're a big corporation. You should be allowed to do it. You should be able to run your own community. Isn't the answer becoming obvious that we're just putting it down the wrong pipeline, the pipeline of money and power, the conventional systems that exist already, allowing ourselves to be distracted by these cultural arguments that will never be resolved, because there is not just one right way to do stuff. There's loads of ways that people could do stuff. There's loads of ways to raise a child, and they're all going to have mistakes in them, because children, let me tell you now, are a pain in the arse. It had given the entertainment giant freedom from almost all bureaucratic intervention for half a century, and is thought to have saved it from tens of millions of dollars in taxes and fees. And it's part of why Disney chose to build its theme parks in Florida, where it's become the state's largest private employer with some 80,000 jobs. So this is a great argument. It's an argument between corporate power and state power. Most of the time, corporate and state power line up nicely. They come up with deals. Now, the cultural argument, because of the way that the media space has started to operate lately, has led to this conflict and conflagration. But the state and the corporations ultimately will come to a resolution because they need one another. What is of barely any significance to them is you and your family and your feelings, except as how you, your family and your feelings can be resourced to give them either money or power. From the Wall Street Journal, one reason CEOs rarely criticise progressive governance is they don't want to become targets of the left. Jennifer Say has said she was forced to resign as Levi Strauss president after she criticised school closures. The fact that executives feel freer to criticise Republicans than Democrats speaks volumes about who is friendlier to business and free speech. Formerly called the Parental Rights in Education Law, the Don't Say Gay law also calls on school districts to avoid LGBT topics when not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students. Opponents say the law will isolate and stigmatise LGBT youth, while supporters say it protects children from age inappropriate content. Complex philosophical ideas that need to be discussed, and I would say determined at the level of the family, the individual, the person. It's not something to be glibly dismissive of. And I would say I don't want corporations or big business in charge of that. I would like any individual to feel afraid of being who they are, unable to communicate about who they are. That strikes me as tyrannical. What all of this points to for me is the impossibility of centralized models that get their ideals from either big business or the state, or at least ultimately operate in the service of those two institutions. Me, I want to raise my children how I want to raise my children. I suppose if you're asking what I believe in local, collective, democratic communities, so the community can come to a consensus on how they want their children raised, and that there should be tolerance and respect for both traditional and progressive values within that model, and that everybody is participating in this conversation, no one is excluded, and no one's made to feel ashamed for being who they are. Here's another story around the Disney Corporation that tells you what their priorities might be. Conservatives are convinced that Disney is trying to implement a radical left agenda, but even with its altruistic seeming new housing development for workers, the company is just looking out for the bottom line. Now, this is more the stuff that I'm interested in. What's really at stake here? Once you accept that on an individual and cultural level, tolerance and openness is a necessity, then how does power really operate? Let's start to examine that. For me, that's a significant question that we can all agree on. We're all going to have a variety of views on how to raise our children. Even in my household, there are different views. When it comes to how to run a country, there are some different things that need to be discussed. We are invested in working together with our community to solve complex issues, said Jeff Bartle, president of the Walt Disney World Resort, about the company's recent decision to build 1,300 units of affordable housing in the Orlando area. The truth is that Disney's new commitment to expanding housing options for its workers is a sign of the company's self-interest. What? For Disney cast members, imagine the reality of being in that bloody helmet and pretending to be Mickey Mouse all day, asphyxiated under that sort of saccharine snug, having children poke you in the groin. To live in a 2-bedroom apartment near work would require a nearly $30 an hour wage, according to a report by the National Low Income Housing Coalition. That's double the amount that the vast majority of the resort's 77,000 workers make. So it's about all these things, they distract you. It's about money. It's always about money and power. No one cares about anything else. At the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, Disney axed more than 32,000 of its lowest wage workers. Why? Because of gender issues? Or was it money? A few months later, in March 2021, the company's stock hit a new all-time high of $203 a share, and CEO Bob Chapek ended up doubling his earnings to $32 million last year. Money! Disney still believes in good old-fashioned capitalism. That's the real ideology. Don't get distracted. And that leafy new development it wants to build is little more than a fresh spin on an old feature of American life, not depicted on Main Street, USA, the company town. We're not going to pay you enough money to live in the areas where you work, but we do need you to live in the areas of work so you can work there for not enough money. Therefore, we're going to build you a sort of prison. Okay, so there we are. A complicated issue that's likely to evoke high charges of emotion. That's what it's supposed to do, because when you're frightened or full of desire or anger, you're unable to think straight. So here's some suggestions. You should be in charge of how your community is run. You should be in charge of how your children is educated. None of us want to be told by the state or big business how to raise our children. Because I don't know what's in Ron DeSantis' mind. I don't know what's in the minds of the people that run the Disney Corporation when it comes to complex issues around identity and gender. But when it comes to their true ideology, I can tell you without doubt that what they care about is money and power. That's why this whole story is seeded with and ridden with articles that demonstrate that fact. Donations are made, tax breaks are given, housing is built, low wages are paid. Money, 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 money. Don't get distracted by the mouse. Start looking at the money. But that's just what I think. What do you think? You let me know in the comments below how you feel about raising your children, the Disney Corporation, Ron DeSantis as a potential president, how you want your communities run, what kind of views affect you. Have you changed as a result of this video? Are you willing to let go of some of your cherished beliefs? What can you let go of in order to create a new world? Because surely, by God, we need a new world and we can't let it be run by Disney or possibly not even by Ron DeSantis. What do you think? What world do you want to end up in? Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe to this video. Please turn on the notification bells. Please comment. Keep this conversation going. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at this one or this one. Please subscribe to my mailing list here so I can remain in direct communication with you. But more important than any of that is that you please stay free.